All right, welcome. Welcome everybody. Jane, let me know when we are up and running. Welcome everybody. Okay, sweet. Thank you, Jane. So this is Career Lab Wednesday. Welcome, Chris, and welcome everybody who's viewing in. Career Lab Wednesday, what we do is our job is to support you in your career. And there's all kinds of ways to do that. There's resume work, there's your LinkedIn profile, there's interviewing skills. All of it is welcome here. Any questions that you have. Now, we take a different approach at Right. We really focus on social and emotional intelligence. And so we run your resume, your interview process, your networking. We run all of that through our social and emotional intelligence curriculum. So that's a high level introduction to everything. Hello, welcome, Lucky. Good to have you on. So this
Great.
is Career Lab Wednesday. This we're here every Wednesday noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. And again, we take all questions. There's no question too small, no question too big. We've had people join in over several months sometimes working on a career transition. So, whatever is on your heart is the most important thing for you to share and to get yourself in on. Now, there's a few ways you can join in. Best way is when you can join in on Zoom directly. That way I can work with you one to one, as Lucky and Chris have done. That's great. If you can't, if you're at work, if you're traveling or something and you're just listening in, what you can do is you can type your questions into the comment section and Jane will get those over to me and I will answer your questions that way. So, welcome everybody. Lucky, good to see your face. I'd love to check in with you. How's it going and what coaching are you looking for? What support do
Well,
you need?
um, my verbalization doesn't keep up with my exuberance.
I don't know what that means.
I'm I'm very excited about going out and presenting my neurofeedback and my hyperbaric oxygen chamber, which I'm calling heaven under pressure.
Uh-huh.
But when
Heaven
I go
under
out,
pressure.
yeah, and because it's really you really feel a little bit different dimension when you come out of there.
Well, you know I like that stuff with my ice water jumps and my breath work, so I'll definitely have to check it out.
Okay. Um,
Well,
now,
any way
so
that we can support you today.
well, so I mean, well, first of all, just saying that. Well, for example, a person I know wrote a little book called the My Little Book of Big Feelings,
Mm-hmm.
and and I read it and I liked it, and I wanted to put up a review, which I finally did, and it just
Congrats.
yeah, and it took me forever to find the right words, and I have this realization that I'm not clear as clear in my speaking as I am in my feeling.
Mm. So what could you do about that?
First of all, stop keeping it to myself so that I can at least begin to reach around for some support.
That sounds good. Well, and so for everybody listening in, I want to set some wider context here. So, Lucky, what you're talking about is the universal language of emotions and also the research we've done on yearnings. But I think everybody understands emotions. So I want to underline what you just said there. about you might not have the right words for things. There might be things that don't connect, or you're not sure if they connect, but you know that when you're feeling and you're communicating your emotions clearly, that things seem to work smoothly. Is that accurate?
Yeah, people are really not just hearing me, but listening, letting it strike themselves. In other words, I'm I'm constantly applying for a job every time I talk to somebody about what I do or what I want to do, and there's no difference
Uh-huh.
except I'm applying for jobs a couple times a day.
So,
Verbal.
so Lucky is you own a couple businesses, and so
Mhm.
you are in the act of applying for new business every day with every conversation. And I think
Right.
that's a really helpful framework for others to understand about life and about influencing. And so it ties in too with our topic today of socializing, of making your holiday time social. So, Lucky, I'm going to talk a little bit about this. And I want to check back in with you in a bit. But as we're going into this holiday time, I've heard a lot of people say things like, oh, well, nobody's hiring now. And nobody may set up a job interview between now and Christmas, but that doesn't mean that you can't be setting the stage for it, that you can't be making connections that are going to help you in your interview process. So, Lucky, as you're going into this holiday time, there's a lot of events for you to be going to. There's a lot of connections for you to be making. You've got this new product, this thing you're excited about. And so my hunch is, a good move for you would be to just make sure that you're going to be at events where there's a lot of people that you can connect with and connect on that emotional level with. How does
I
that sound?
Yes, I will. I'm going to a Mixer Monday that I've been avoiding for 15 months.
Okay, so are you going next Monday?
Yeah. Yeah.
So by next Career
River
Lab, you
North.
will have gone.
Yes, I will have gone.
I would like to hear from you on how that went.
Well, I want to underline. I want to underline or broaden something you mentioned just now, George. People right now, yeah, there's a big crush to get all the paperwork to the accountant, and that's part true. That's what part of business. But people are always hiring in their mind. If you make an impression, they will remember it, and it's much easier after the first of the year to refresh an impression than it is to stick your toes in the sand for the first time and try to get traction.
That's a really good point, Lucky. That's a really good point. It's and to take it one step further, and because one of the things we do at Right Foundation is to work on our micro moves. What are the little course corrections we can make so that we're being more and more impactful? And during this holiday time, it's like we have the excuse to be a little more upbeat or a little warmer because we can join into the kind of festival experience, the experience of connecting and joy. And it's sort of like I have more of an excuse to smile and make those connections, then I might step out of my comfort zone that way a little more. If you're going into an interview, you want to be upbeat, you want to have that smile, you want to make that contact. Well, you can be using all of your events that you go to, family gatherings, friend gatherings, all of those to test this out and to develop the skill of being more engaged.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. Oh, and I'm seeing so Lucky, thank you so much. I'm going to check in with Divinity Johnson here with your question. So, Divinity, you want tips on how to build confidence and effective communication. and transition into a completely different industry with transferable skills. Okay, well, let's take these kind of one at a time. I'm gonna earmark this, Divinity. I will. If you notice, we did just kind of address the first one, but I want to check in and see. Al and Chris, you might have some things that relate to this. I want to see where you're at and what support you're looking for today. Welcome, by the way. Welcome. This may be your first time here to Career Lab. So you're free to come off mute, your audio or your video as well if you'd like. Or if you're unavailable, you can type your questions in here. But I wanted to check in with you since I have you here on Zoom. How can we support you today? Okay, I'm going to keep talking, but let me know. You're free to just come off mute and talk with me. So, building confidence and effective communication. One of the challenges with confidence is that I'm not actually confident until I've already done something. I might be out of touch. I might be able to fake it. I might be able to fake that I'm feeling confident, but it doesn't always work. So one of the things that people run into in their in the interview process is that they might try to sell themselves. They might try to act confident. But if I'm acting confident, if I'm trying to convince you of something, it usually doesn't work. And so you don't, if you're trying to sell yourself in an interview or in any conversation, it's going to tend to not work so well. And what you want to do to develop confidence is to serve the person that you're talking to. You want to, if you're in a networking situation, you want to find out about them. You know, if somebody were to talk to me right now, they might say, "Oh, that's a nice plant you have back there," and they would say, "What? How did you come to get that plant?" And then I would start talking to them about it. And then the conversation can go pretty easily. You can say, "Oh, tell me more about that." And you don't have to input a whole lot. You asking questions is going to be one of the number one things for you to develop confidence, or to have that experience of it. So I'm hoping that is, oh, good. Al, you're asking about how to gain more social and networking skills and be able to speak better and more articulately. Can you come off mute, Al, and talk to me about this? Because we get
Hey, hello.
this. Okay,
Hello.
great, Chris. Hey, Al,
Hey, how's
welcome.
it going?
It's going well, man.
All right. So, yeah, my question was basically just to gain more social networking skills in the department and just and be more articulate in speaking and speaking with more confidence.
Okay.
So I was just wondering different ways or yeah, stuff like that.
Well, what can you tell me about a time where you had an interaction that, and tell me what you think you did well and tell me what you'd
So,
like to do better.
okay, so I would say, for an example, in an interview, I would give a lot of information. I would continuously talk with confidence and everything. But sometimes, like, my timeline of things would just be scattered all over the place. And I think that that's just a lack of confidence and a lack of just, I don't know. It's just sometimes it kind of sputters everywhere instead of just being very aligned.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. Okay, this is great. This is great data. So I think a lot of people will relate to this.
Hmm.
When you're in that interview and you're trying to give them a lot of information about yourself,
Hmm.
most people are not going to stop you and say that they've stopped paying attention to you.
Okay.
Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree.
That one of the things I do in my mock interview coaching is as soon as you lose my interest, I tell you.
Hmm.
I say, Al, I started thinking about something else. I'm not with you anymore.
Okay.
And so then we get to work on that moment to moment where it is that you kind of lose yourself. And this is something called internal locus of control versus external locus of control. Most people have an external locus of control, meaning that they're looking outside of themselves for affirmation for what to do.
Mm.
And developing an internal locus of control does not happen overnight. You can
Okay.
develop more of an internal locus of control through your interview process, and I'm going to say a little bit more about how to do that.
Hmm.
But I'm kind of educating everybody listening in here through this process. So you want to, if you're talking like that, you're just throwing stuff out there and it's not necessarily landing with them, and they're kind of biding their time. Does that
Hmm.
is that
That
your
kind of makes
experience?
sense. Yes,
Okay.
that does.
And so the approach that you want to take is that you interview them, and this is especially with interviewing. I was talking about networking before and asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
This you're going to use the same approach, but you want to look at the job and ask yourself, why do they have this position opening? What is it that they need here? And then when they ask you a question, so presumably they're looking at your resume,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll ask you something, oh, so you have, so what, tell me a little bit more about you, Al, actually. What's
Yeah,
your
so
experience?
I currently I'm working as an operations coordinator for the Department of Psychiatry at UIC, which is in Chicago. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
anybody else is in Chicago or not. And mostly my experience is customer service, operations liaison, um, stuff in that realm. Working on like Microsoft Excel spreadsheets and doing stuff like that,
Okay,
and kind of
perfect.
like coordinating other, between people, being the middleman, pretty much, just to get things done.
Uh-huh. Okay, good, good, good. And what are you applying for?
So I'm actually transferring over to UIC to get my bachelor's right now. And I want to get that in business administration, like a focus in supply chain or something like that. So I'm really
Mm-hmm.
trying to apply these skills and become more business savvy and stuff like that, to apply these skills towards maybe a business analyst position or a supply chain analyst, something in that realm.
Mm-hmm. And have you had interviews for these positions?
I've had interviews for like logistics coordinator and operations coordinator, more of that realm, not an analyst, because you need that bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to give, when they ask you a question, can you give me an example of a question they ask you?
Let's see. Name an instance where things went wrong and you did something to prevent things to go into pure chaos or something like that. Or tell
Okay,
me a little bit about yourself.
what's your response to that first question?
So I would go solely, let's say, straight into man. Sometimes I would freeze up, and or sometimes I would just go straight into like the customer service relatable type of experience, because I also did security. I was a security officer at UIC.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
So what's the one that what's one example that feels really good
Hmm,
where you were like, oh, that I handled that well.
okay. Say an instance where one a nurse was getting cursed out by a patient or something like that, and they were just going solely into I don't know. I man, I can't even really
Well, you
figure
don't
it
need
out
to
right
give
now.
a whole lot of context. Part of what we want to get to is a very quick response from you. So I'm
Mm.
I'm just going to give a
Yeah,
quick
and that's my
example.
problem right there. Having the quick response and just kind of overthinking, over analyzing for that perfect response.
Yeah, that's and you can do some of that analyzing beforehand,
Hmm.
But you're going to have to get more into your emotions and flow and be able to kind of
Mm.
respond. But what did you do in that scenario where somebody was cursing out a nurse?
I would go straight up to that person and just try to de-escalate the situation
How did you de-escalate it?
by either talking to this person, just bringing them to the side, or kind of like leveling with them.
Did you?
Yes.
And how did you level with them?
Just talking to them about, relating to them on, different experiences on, like, let's say, family issues, or trying to relate with them.
So, okay, the way I kind of relate to this is one time I came across somebody who had been hit by a car,
Hmm.
and I was surprised at how well I did in that moment at being present and handling things.
Hmm.
Then, when somebody asked me about it at work later that day, I basically didn't know what to say because I had all kinds of emotions around. I was just sort of like, ah. My hunch
Hmm.
with you is that when the I forget if I can say shit on YouTube. Oh well, too late. I just said it.
Hmm.
When the shit hits the fan, that you show up and you're
Hmm.
effective.
Yes.
And so you need to say that. So somebody would say, "How? What's an example of how you manage the situation?" And you would say, "One time, a nurse was being cussed out by a patient, and I intervened, took the patient aside, related to them, and de-escalated the situation, and had them felt seen and understood, so that we were able to kind of get things back to a working process." How does that sound?
Sounds great. Sounded,
So this is
yeah, that
one
sounded
of
really well.
Okay, good. So take that
Hmm.
and you want to apply that kind of thing. And it's often this is one reason why coaching is effective is because
Hmm.
we're in our own head. And so it's
Exactly.
really helpful to have somebody else hear what we're saying and actually assess our gifts and be able to feed those gifts back to us in a way that we can talk about. Because that's not a skill, and there's actually all kinds of neuroscience on this. That part of our
Uh-huh.
brain has not really developed. Um,
Okay.
so coaching is incredibly effective for this. So you want to do that. You want to take an example, give it very bottom lined, and after you deliver that, check to see. You could say to the person interviewing you, "Was that helpful? Would you like
Hmm.
another example?"
Hmm.
So see how right there you don't want to keep talking. You don't want to talk in a question like that. You don't want to talk for more than 20 to 30 seconds.
Okay.
And you want to check to see if they are present with you.
Hmm. Okay.
Then you're going to see you might actually have a question. You want to be developing this internal locus of control, and
Hmm.
you want to ask them a question and say, are those types of scenarios things I would be handling in this position? And for what you just described, it doesn't sound like it,
Okay.
but you might say, oh, in these positions, would I be interacting with customers who are concerned about where their orders are coming from or something like that?
Hmm.
Because you want to help them tie the connection and you want to find out more about the position you're interviewing for. Because now you are developing your confidence moment to moment with them. You're finding out more about the job and what they really need.
Hmm.
And it's not just all a performance for you, Al. You're not just sitting back trying to look good.
Okay.
It's
That
really
makes
about the
sense.
relationship you develop. Is how are we doing? Is this helping?
Yeah. Yeah, that really is. I'm writing everything down too, especially the interlocus self-control.
Oh
Yeah, a
yeah,
lot of this
yeah.
is making sense. It really is. I appreciate
Yes.
that.
That again, and that's, it's no sin. It's just data that most people on the planet at this point in time have an external locus of control. And
Hmm.
what we do is we seek to increase people's internal locus of control so that you can be more effective in your interactions and overall know yourself more and be more satisfied. See, we take
Mm-hmm.
career and we look at career as a vessel or a pathway for you to reach your potential, as opposed to I'm going to find the exact right fit for me. The exact right fit is a myth. Just like in a marriage, there's no such thing as the perfect one. The perfect one is what I create through time.
Okay. And when you say time, you mean like experiences and just more making yourself more confident and stuff like that.
Yes, like I would say at the end of my life, I'd say, "Oh, I'm married to the perfect woman. I'm married to my perfect match," because it already
Hmm.
happened. But if
Okay.
I try to pretend that somebody is perfect up front, it just ends up anyway, that I'm taking us down a whole nother rabbit hole and I'm
No, no,
keep this on career.
I think you're right on, George. I mean, and I know how fast, I know how fast this verbal sled travels once you get on
Yeah.
it.
Thank you, Lucky. Hey, Lucky, you've got a lot of birds chirping. I,
Yes,
I'm gonna keep putting you on mute when you're not talking, okay?
sure, sure. And I wanted to, what I found, I began by thinking that I was the only one who really didn't understand or wasn't understood. And now I ask more and more, not easily, but I do it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or do you know what I mean? And I'm I'm knocked over by how many times people are willing to say no.
Uh-huh. That's great, Lucky. That is there's so much that I don't know and I'm not even aware that I don't know. But if somebody asks me, "Do you understand? Are you with me?" Then I can actually pause and say, "Huh. I no, I'm not." And okay, let me get back on the same page with you. So that's great. In the interview process, Al, you want to own that that's happening. Just like what Lucky said when he's talking to people, you want to develop the skill of saying, "Are we connected?" And whatever words you use in that moment.
Okay.
And I'll share a high level. So this interviewing the interviewer, one big success story I had with this was a guy who interviewed at a company so well that the the CEO said, "Well, I would hire you, except you just asked such good questions that helped me realize that we don't actually need this position, that we need something else. So unfortunately, I can't hire you at this time. You just interviewed your way out of an interview, out of the job." But it was really about the relationship, and he was able to connect him to some other companies that worked out for what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's your North Star, is you are finding out about them more than you're trying to tell them that you're a good fit. You're either a good fit or you're not. If it's not a good fit for you, you figure that out quickly, and you're not wasting your time or their time. So I think that has been helping Divinity Johnson's question on how to build confidence and effective communication. And maybe we're even getting some into transitioning into a completely different industry. Al, it doesn't sound like you're transferring to a completely different industry.
Mm-hmm.
But that we are looking at how you can share your skills as being transferable. Do you have any questions about that, Al?
No questions.
Okay. Okay.
Let me peek a question then, Al. First of all, I think if you think about is your skill transferable to another industry, I would guess that the first thing you would say is no. But my instinct is that if you thought about it for a while, you might see a few openings, which will do nothing but fortify you in your own confidence.
Right on, Lucky. And
Okay.
Alan, for everybody, that's something you can set up in coaching. So for you to be able to talk through and get perspective about what skills you have and how those are transferable. Again, I often don't see my own gifts in things. I didn't realize what an effective, I used to set up jobs for a moving company. And it never occurred to me that I was effective at it because I just did it. But it wasn't until I was actually taking courses at Wright where somebody pointed out to me, like, oh, so you could hear by the way somebody talked on a phone what moving crew you were going to send to that location. You knew sort of what groups of people were going to work together best. You knew how to like pick up on those cues. And I was like, oh yeah, that's true. I do know that. I am very sensitive to people and how people interact. I didn't even know that was a gift. And that can transfer to so many different things. So like you being able to de-escalate, somebody really stirred up, there's going to be all kinds of ways that's a really important thing for people to have. Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to do a quick room reset. This is Career Lab Wednesday. We're here every Wednesday from noon to 1 p.m. Central. We're talking about the holidays and socializing, getting yourself set up for 2023. But that being said, we take all questions career related. We've been talking about interviewing and developing confidence. Developing confidence is a lifelong journey. It's not a one and done deal. You could pretend to be confident, but that usually doesn't work out so well. So with that being said, there's a few ways that you can communicate, get questions answered, etc. I love it when you jump in directly here on the Zoom link. I can work with you like Lucky and Al. If that's not an option, you can type your questions into the comments section and I can address your questions that way. Welcome, Rosalinda. Good to have you. Is there anything that we can support you with?
Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome. Well, I just want to observe today, and maybe next time in the next meeting, I will have questions and might have or need help.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining in, Rosalinda.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to doing this for all of us that need it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And, I want to share a way that you can connect with me directly. I'm offering out to anybody joining in a 15-minute call. If you want to set that up, you can go directly to my calendar and book a time with me. And my goal in that is to serve you as much as possible. Sometimes 15 minutes is all you need. And if not, then we can talk about next steps in coaching. But I want to throw that out there for everybody as another avenue to you being your best self in your career. So go ahead and check that out. The other thing that I work with an organization, Wright Foundation, and we have an in-depth emotional intelligence training we do 4 times a year. Our next one is January 6th through the 8th. It's all online. That for anybody wanting to develop your communication skills, do that. It's at the heart of it. It's online, but very interactive, where like Al and I were doing, you get that kind of interaction with people. So you have a team lead, you have a team, so you get to actually practice the skills that you're learning on the training. It's a fantastic thing to check out. So again, book a 15-minute coaching consultation with me. I'll serve you as much as I can in that time. And if you already know you want more of this emotional intelligence training, check out the More Life training. Welcome again. Okay, good. We've got Abdul. So, Abdul, you've been a year and a half in Sumo Builders Incorporated. You feel okay. You're unable to communicate confidently with your team. Yes. Abdul, are you able to jump in on here? I'm going to talk a little bit about this. If you're able to jump in on the Zoom, I'd like to connect with you directly. And if not, set up a time with me with that 15-minute coaching consult link. So actually, Lucky, you kind of teed us off with this. One of the universal languages or universal ways of communicating is emotion. And the way that this often plays out in teams is we've got different personality styles. And I'm a kind of cooperator, energizer type. I'm good at feelings stuff. I'm not great with data. I'm not great with being perfect with things. And if somebody's giving me a whole lot of data, Al, I kind of suspect you're an analyzer. So you could be talking to me and just giving me all kinds of helpful data, but it might never get through to me.
Okay.
So there's learning how to communicate with your emotions is so critical as a manager or as a boss or whatever. When you have a team,
It is.
you cannot spend all of your time one-on-one with them. Now, I do recommend you do spend one-on-one time with people, but that's not, you also got to learn how to communicate to a team. And the critical thing here again is you being able to express your emotions because people understand emotions. So Abdul, the story I'll share about this was a client of mine several years ago. Now he worked in tech, and he described his team to me as very nerdy, like a bunch of like computer geeks, really smart, but like not emotionally expressive at all. And this guy, my client, was not emotionally expressive at all. But we started getting into emotional intelligence and him learning to express his primary feelings: fear, hurt, anger, sadness, joy. And they had a client meeting. It didn't go well. The clients kind of screwed with them and didn't give them all the information. So he sits down with his team, and he'd been working on expressing his feelings, and he just says, "I'm angry," and puts his fist on the table. And he looked at his team, and everybody, it was kind of like a record scratch. Like, everybody was like, uh-oh, because like nobody expresses emotions. And then his team starts talking, and they're like, you know what? Me too. That wasn't okay that they didn't give us that information that we needed to help them get what they need. So this is a real problem. And my client said he sat back for 15 minutes and just watched his team come up with creative solutions to how to work with their client. And he was like, my goodness, all I did was express a feeling. And they all understood. They understood why I was upset. And they all rushed in to come up with ways to resolve this and to set up ways to communicate better with the client. And he was like, it was amazing because now I wasn't micromanaging them, telling them what to do. I just expressed a feeling and they stepped in to solve the problem. So Abdul, that's just one snapshot of an example. But if you're when you're trying to communicate confidently to your team, the fact that you're trying to do it confidently is a red flag to me, because you need to be focused not on doing it right, but on what's the outcomes that you want for the team. That's going to give you the confidence as you go for it. But if you're trying to, like, if you're like watching YouTube videos on how to communicate confidently, that's great, because you can try things out that maybe you wouldn't have done before. You might say, oh, I'm going to use my hands more when I'm talking. Again, that's more emotional expression. Or I'm going to, like, lift my eyebrows up while I'm talking. That's great. If you can be acting in ways that have you be more confident, then you're going to start feeling more confident. So, Abdul, I hope that helps. Another quick one is, there's all kinds of research on this. You may have seen it. If you put your arms up in the air for 2 minutes, the Superman pose, you do this for 2 minutes before going into a meeting, it actually increases your confidence. It helps you feel better. If you're not going to put your hands, if you're on Zoom, you can just put your hands on your hips. You notice I'm standing while in this. I find I like to be standing when hosting meetings better. I feel better. So things that you
Really?
do to just get yourself feeling well. What's that?
Really? Really?
Yeah,
Putting my
yeah,
really?
do it 2 minutes. If you can, before an interview, go into the bathroom or something and, like, just do a pose. And while you're at it, you might as well do some Kundalini yoga and do some breath work, because it will energize you.
Well, I am convinced that I won't fly away.
That's great. So I want to check in with you, Abdul. If you're able to jump on, please do. If not, type in, and I want to see if that helped with your question. So again, this is Career Lab Wednesday. We're here to support you in your career. Your career is your pathway or your vessel for you to become who you can become. And so when you're going in for interviews, you want to be interviewing them. You want to be seeing if that is a place you really want to work and asking questions about it. So again, set up a time to talk with me to get clear about what it is that you want from a job. Why are you looking? What are the companies that most interest you, and why do they interest you? So you can get clarity about what's interesting to you, and not just, are they going to accept me? Are they going to accept me? Now we got a question. Oh, great. I was told that I was lacking showing confidence when I asked my supervisor this week for her feedback about my performance. She said that she can tell I know my stuff from all my experience. Okay, experiences. So your supervisor says, I know you have it, Tiffany. I can tell that you have the skills, and yet you show a lack of confidence, just in kind of moment to moment. So it looks like the next question there is how to show confidence in a relatively new job without seeming arrogant. Oh, I historically sit back and observe, but I know a lot of things from my background and have a lot of ideas. Oh, this is a great question. Tiffany, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so when you are first onboarding at a job, and there's so much to dig into here. Tiffany, if you're able to jump on, please do. I'd love to talk with you directly, but I'll do my best with that. But I'm going to get going here. So when you're getting into a new job, for the number one thing you want to do is set up as many one-to-ones with people as you can. So I'm not addressing your question yet, Tiffany, but we're getting there. Actually, that probably does, because as you set up one-to-ones with people, you are going to feel more confident. You're going to feel like you know people better and they know you. There's I've shared this many times on here. When global corporations first started happening, they're doing global projects. They're like, great, we don't have to fly people around anymore. We have this thing called email and the internet, so we can just run projects without people ever even seeing each other. So they launched it. It didn't work. Nothing got done. 12 years of research later, why that happened was because we need a template of who we're communicating with in order to make a decision. So I can know how to do a job, but if I don't know who I'm talking to, I'll end up procrastinating. And so they found the most effective way to run these global projects was to take key players, fly them to the same place, have them get to know each other, bring their families if possible, not talk about work, but to really develop a strong personal connection. So when you're starting off in a job, the number one thing you can do is develop as many strong personal connections with everybody you work with. That will have you be more confident going forward. There's nothing more important than that. Now, the next thing, you have a lot of experiences, Tiffany. You don't always want to jump in and give ideas, and you might want to tell people that. You might want to say, "Oh, I'm here kind of learning how things work. Um, and I don't know that I want to share things yet." That I don't know. That's a conversation you want to have, Tiffany. The thing that you could do is actually say, "Hey, as I'm onboarding here, I'm going to ask a lot of questions." And your ignorance in a job when you're first starting it is one of your biggest assets, because presumably there can be improvements in the organization that you just got hired onto. And they're all doing things a certain way that might not be the best effective way. And if you can ask questions about why things are done a certain way and say, "Hey, help me understand this," you might start highlighting things that can be removed or done better. And it doesn't, oh, this is the thing I wanted to protect you against, Tiffany, though, is you don't want to just start having everybody pile on to you. You don't want to run in as the rescuer or as the hero when you first get hired. That's a way that a lot of people can end up hating their job and trying to get out of it in 6 months. Is if you come in and you just start saying, "Oh, I see a problem there. I see a hole to fill there. Okay, great, I'll handle that. Oh, there's another problem. Okay, great, I'll handle that." Pretty soon, you're juggling so many things, and you may have lost the opportunity to address deeper issues in the company. But you can kind of do it when you're new by using your own ignorance, because nobody's going to expect you to be a hero yet. But it's you trying to seem confident that can kind of set yourself up for failure. So I'm hoping that helps kind of as you're getting into your new company, Tiffany. And the arrogant thing, I know you some, Tiffany. My hunch with the arrogance thing is just don't worry about it. Don't worry. Like, if somebody's arrogant, like, I mostly care about if they're effective. Like, do they get the job done? Are they helpful? Or are they helping things improve? You so don't strike me as somebody arrogant that I'm just not worried about it, Tiffany. I would say you could go for being more arrogant. If somebody says, "Geez, you're just so arrogant," then I think we could celebrate. So, if other people, sometimes people might get the feedback that their team hates them because they're so arrogant. That's a different issue. But I think a lot of times people are just worried about being arrogant, and they may not actually be. So I'm hoping this is helpful. Great, Chris. I'm looking forward to talking with you. Oh, another question. Is it a positive or negative when you are promoted within a company within 6 months? Or to transition titles every year to demonstrate progress? What do you think? What do you think, Trelisa? I would say it's a positive. I don't know the specifics, but I think getting promoted tends to be a good thing. Um, okay, good. That Tiffany said that helps. So Trelisa, I'm not quite sure. If I could hear more, that'd be good. But I tend to think that um, being promoted in a company within 6 months would be great. Um,
All right. I think. Hi, George. How are you?
hey, doing well. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I had to hop off. I was on earlier, but I had a meeting, so I had to hop back on. I apologize.
Oh, gotcha. No, thanks for joining in.
Yes. So my question mainly is that I've been with my company for 6.5 years,
Mhm.
and I've pretty much been promoted within each classification every year and a half or so. And then within this current year, I've recently been promoted, and I'd held the other position, the other title for 7 months, like 7 or 8 months. So it's the same system, but I'm just being promoted within that system. But ultimately, my goal is to transition into government. So I'm thinking, like when you then take those roles that you've had and you've been promoted every year, does it look like a liability, or is it considered a strength? I
Oh,
would
no,
think of it as a strength. Okay.
that's a strength, absolutely.
Okay.
And you can just make, if you're worried about how that looks on paper or something, just make sure it looks clear. Like and so you've been at the same company this whole time?
Yes.
No, that makes it, that's obvious then.
Okay.
Congratulations. I think
Thank you.
I think you are a wanted woman in a good way, and I think going into government, I think this is all going to serve you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I wasn't sure. I know it can go either way an interview. I actually was just asked that question for the current position I have. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I had never been asked that before, like, why are you leaving the department so soon? Or, why are you choosing to transition after a year or so? I was like, oh, is that too soon to transition, or, to look for progress, or,
Well, no, what was your answer?
I pretty much just told them that I wanted to continue cultivating my skills and use it towards my MBA.
Uh-huh. And what was their response?
They said that was fine. So, well, the position currently that I have now is also hybrid. So I kind of just used some of the perks to just let them know that this is what I was looking for to
Mhm.
transitioning. So they seemed okay. It seemed okay with the response.
Yeah,
I got the
absolutely.
job.
Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah, letting people know what your goals are, what your inspiration is, what you're moving towards is really a wonderful thing to do in the interview process for Lisa and for everybody listening in. Giving people what you're passionate about, learning how to talk about that and saying, oh, this position works for me this way. If I'm hiring you, that gives me security knowing that you know what you want.
Okay.
So it sounds like great stuff. Let me know if there's anything else I can support you with, Trelisa.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. This is good stuff. Congratulations. Um, you know, I would say one more thing I could add, Tiffany, is that you say that you historically sit back and observe. One of the best things that we can do in our careers and in our interactions is to do things a little differently. Um, I mean, I do this. My physical therapist told me this about just how to use my body. I open the door with a different hand to notice how I kind of get into a rut of doing things the same all the time, keeps my awareness of possibilities limited. And so I would say if you're used to sitting back and observing in meetings, then look for times where you would ask a question where you wouldn't normally ask a question. And observe how many other people kind of light up when you ask that question. And the chances are is that several other people were not really on the same page, and you asking a question actually got them more engaged in the meeting. And lucky, this is what you were talking about at the beginning of our time today, was, you saying to somebody, are you with me? Do you understand what I'm saying? And how often they say, no, I don't. So I think if your pattern is normally to sit back and observe, take some risks and ask questions or make observations where you might not normally. You don't have to take huge risks with it, but do it a little bit, get a little bit outside your comfort zone. It's like when I'm warming up for basketball, I shoot with my left hand. I'm terrible at it. Like I don't make most of the shots, but it starts to get me outside of my comfort zone and make me more alert to more possibilities. So I hope that that's useful. It's something easy to do. It doesn't take time for you to do that. You can just try things a little differently. Well, we're coming up on the hour here, so thank you, everybody.
I want to circle back briefly to something that was said about coaching. I think coaching is. I think if I hadn't gotten the coaching, well, I said that I was going to go to a networking event Monday. And if we hadn't talked about it and hadn't gotten that slight bit of encouragement, I promise you, I would have blown it off.
Yes.
So to people who are fairly new with coaching, it took me a long time to tell you, to learn what I'm going to tell you. I always thought that if I was the coachee, if I was paying for the coaching, that I was one down. And it took me until people who are in larger positions that I have, they went to get coaching, and that's how they got there. So coaching is substantial. It's tangible, and if I get coached, I pay for coaching, and when I look at my peers in the same area who aren't getting coaching, I know it's like going to a workout. I feel better after it.
Lucky, thank you. I think well said. And I get, you know what, on this, I don't talk a whole lot about coaching historically about that. I have 3 coaches as well. And, it helps me be accountable and actually get focused on what I want to do and how to communicate that better. And I really appreciate that. And that is one of the functions too of this lab. I love all you joining in and having you come back and having, oh, that's right, I said I was going to do this thing. So I appreciate you sharing that, Lucky. And I look forward to hearing about how that meeting goes. And you're gonna and I'm guessing you're gonna get more value out of that event going in there with this intention and knowing that you have a group that you're connected with and that you'll get more value out of it.
Yeah, and well, it's easy to just talk about this as something that goes from 12 to 1. It's coaching. It's good coaching. And we've all gotten it. At least I think we've all gotten it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lucky. And thank you, everybody. Rosalinda, thank you for joining in. Trelisa, thank you for your questions. Al, great engagement. I really appreciate you sharing. A lot of people I think can relate. And Tiffany, thank you so much.
And that thing January 6th to 8th is free?
Yeah. Oh, yes. That is a free emotional intelligence training.
And quick question. And the
Yeah.
next meeting, the next career lab is next Wednesday. It's every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday from noon to 1 Central
All
Time.
right. Sounds good. Okay. I really appreciate the feedback and everything and the coaching. It was really fun. It was definitely good.
Awesome. Al, thank you.
You're
Thanks for the
welcome.
feedback. All right, everybody, take care. Until next week.